Every headline you see is a smokescreen distracting from the atrocities you heard about yesterday. You are being gaslit by a system designed to keep you blind. Welcome to Political Malpractice. Open your eyes, see the frauds behind the curtain, dismantle the illusion.
And welcome back to Political Malpractice. I have a new special co host with us. She goes to the same school that I do. And I think she's probably a little more left than I am, if you can be. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Leela. I do go to the same law school. I'm also a paralegal at a family law firm. We do a couple other things as well, but primarily family law. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome. All right. So tell us a little more about you, because I think I didn't meet you through the school directly. I think one of the girls there kind of like pointed us at each other's social media.
Yes, yeah. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think. There's like, you want to know about my political beliefs, or do you want to know about what I do at school? Which direction do you want me to go
Let's
in?
let's
I'm
go
a
in the
woman of multitudes.
let's go in the political beliefs.
Okay. Yes, I am pretty far left. I lean more towards the democratic socialism side of the spectrum. So I'm not very established Democrat. I'm universal health care. I want all those things that the progressive left wants. But I mean, I'm also, I'm realistic. I'm not one of those people that's going to sit out an election because my preferred candidate's not in it. I did not vote for Jill Stein. So before anyone comes at me with a pitchfork, that's not me. But yeah, I'm definitely like a pro Mondani
So
leftist.
we're not that different then, you know.
Probably not.
Um,
Probably not.
I am pro universal health care, pro free college, pro free daycare. Tax me. You already tax me to the ends of the earth. Stop making bombs with my taxes. I want my taxes
Yep.
to go towards the people,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Same.
And I
Same.
mean, for me, if the people means undocumented immigrants, I don't give a shit, you know?
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care how you got here. I'm on the side of humanity here.
Hmm.
Um I mean, I understand, that we do have, obviously I'm in law school. I understand that we have laws. I'm all for the reformation, however, of our immigration system, and how we do that. I think it's way too difficult right now for people to get citizenship to this country. We make it damn near impossible for people to do that. Um, but I mean, if you are undocumented, I don't think that is a carte blanche for you to not have rights.
Right.
I, I,
Right.
I'm not, I'm not one of those people.
It When it comes to undocumented immigrants, you went through hell to get here for a reason. And it's not because we have the world's greatest healthcare right now. It's definitely
No.
not because we have the world's greatest schools, because we are shit in a world ranking when it comes to school quality. It's not because we have the best food. It's because they're fleeing a dictator state. I mean, at this point,
Or
I'm sure they're.
personal, or because they're, a lot of people. I was actually watching a special the other day. I don't know if you've seen it. It was nominated for best documentary. It was about that journalist who got killed in Ukraine. And
No.
he was talking about I believe they were in Ecuador, but don't quote me on that. His mother got killed in a gang shooting, and they were fleeing because they were caught up in the midst of gang violence, even though they were not part of the gang. They just wound up getting caught up in that kind of thing. And that
Right.
dynamic happens a lot. So whether it's because of violence in your country or dictatorships or whatever reason you're fleeing, you're probably not fleeing because you just don't like,
Right.
whatever's going on there. I think that there's a reason you're trying to get out. People don't just
It,
leave their homes for no reason.
and what I think that the anti-immigration, pro-isolationists, pro-closed border folk, um, I don't think they understand that trying to come to the US outside of legal means, staying where you're at until you're given permission to come here, I don't think they understand that it's not easy. It's expensive, it's dangerous, people die, children definitely die. The women that try
Mhm.
to do it end up getting raped, they get sex trafficked. And just because we build a fucking border wall doesn't mean they're not going to try. So building this
Oh,
border
yeah.
wall isn't even going to keep people safe. It's not going to end, the coyotes. It's not going to end this human trafficking bullshit. I don't think they get that.
Well, I don't think that they necessarily, I forgive me for this, but a lot of it, I don't think that they necessarily care. I think a lot of it stems from just plain old racism. So,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
don't disagree.
I don't know if they
Yeah.
really care. It's also that same argument with abortions too, right? Just
Uh-huh.
because you make it illegal doesn't mean people aren't going to do it. It just makes it more dangerous, right?
Yep.
So, I don't, but yeah, I don't think that they care. I think that they just want closed borders because it boils down to that one little nasty racism bug, you know?
It, today is Easter. I'm trying to keep a good mood today.
Oh, you didn't
Not,
see the president's message this morning?
oh, we'll get there.
Praise be to Allah.
We'll get there. We will fucking get there. And not that I celebrate Easter. I am a
Uh,
hardcore atheist. Today
I am
is,
as well.
yes, today is a happy zombie Jesus day because he's a fucking zombie. If you believe that those
Yeah.
events occurred, he's a zombie. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday that I used to work with, and she's Jewish. So is Chris, the other co-host on Wednesdays. Um, but she was saying something, like she had to go to Passover dinner or something. And I laughed and I said, "Oh, you mean the night of vampires?" Because she knows how I am. You know, I said, "Tonight's the night of vampires and tomorrow is the day of zombies."
Oh,
So
that's funny.
that's our little joke. But
Uh,
going on to Mr. Trump, did you happen to catch the White House spiritual advisor's 2-minute sermon? Whatever the fuck you want to
I
call it.
didn't, I didn't watch it, but of course it's hard to escape. So I definitely saw some clips of it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's religious psychosis, but that's a topic for another day. But
Yeah, oh, that's a topic for every day.
well,
That is
yeah,
a
yeah,
topic
it's
for
true. It's
every day.
true. It's
Um,
true.
so I am at this point well known for calling out the evangelical right and really even the evangelical center for
Mhm.
being religious hypocrites. At this point, they are in full defiance of their Bible. They absolutely are behaving like the Pharisees and Sadducees that they were admonished not to be like. And this whole weird thing gave me the creeps. Like, if you are MAGA and did not get cult vibes, if you didn't get some kind of weird Jim Jones feeling watching this, you need to go and see like a psychiatrist because there's something wrong if you totally miss the culty vibe.
Yeah. It's pretty scary. I mean, but the MAGA movement, right? And I mean, I hate to say this, but Christian nationalism in general is not real Christianity at
No,
all.
no.
What this whole thing with Donald Trump is in general a cult of personality anyway. But if you can look at all the things that he's doing, including the justification of the war and all of that, if you can look at all of that and claim to follow
Hmm.
a Jesus who said love your enemies, it's a textbook example of cognitive dissonance. I mean, that's really what it
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. The mental gymnastics that we are seeing from those that are still in MAGA, the mental gymnastics is amazing. With all this working out, I would expect that the South would no longer be the central hub of diabetes in the country, but that hasn't fucking happened yet. Apparently, they're of the mindset that the more mental gymnastics I do, the more I can eat.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in this weird Easter thing that they did several days ago, because it's been circulating social media for a while now, um, we have some male pastor guy. I don't even know who the hell he is. Um, he's praying, explaining to God that we are being the white knights of the Israelis, that the Iranians had threatened to kill all the Jews. And so that's why we were doing this to protect Jesus's people. We're doing what God wants us to do, ignoring the fact that starting 2 years ago, one of the key leaders in the Israeli government was saying things like, there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. The children aren't innocent. Kill them all. They all need to be killed. Well, fuck you. I don't blame the Iranians for wanting to kill Jews because you guys are killing everybody in that region. They're seeing
Mhm.
what you're doing in Gaza. I'd be scared too if I was Iran, you know? And then we've
Yeah.
got whoever the White House spiritual advisor is, dressed up like she's going to motherfucking prom. She's got this crazy evening gown on. Meanwhile, every other woman that you see on camera is wearing a business suit, like they should, because this isn't fucking prom. But she's dressed up like she's going to prom. She is saying that Trump is like Jesus, where Jesus was betrayed and persecuted, so is Trump. That Jesus paid the price. Trump is being made to pay the price. Jesus rose, so too will Trump. And because Jesus defied death, so Trump will somehow be successful.
When you compare a politician's legal troubles to the crucifixion of Jesus, you're not asking for any kind of justice. You're asking for the followers to worship him. And telling his followers that the law isn't wrong, it's sinful, is is crazy.
Yep.
It's stripping the legal reality away from it and turning it into a, like you said, like a blind cult following. And that's setting a very dangerous precedent. It's very scary. It
It,
really is.
it's terrifying at this point, you know? I have no qualms with people that call themselves Christians, that go to church, that actually read their holy book, that try to understand it themselves outside of being told what it means by a pastor, and that try to adhere to the rules that they're given in this book, you know? Um, I have no issue with that. You do you, boo boo. I don't care. That's what this country's for. But when we've got Pete Hegseth asking Almighty God to stretch his arms over our soldiers and protect them, well, fuck you, homie, because they're praying to their imaginary friend over there in Iran, too. Now we've got a battle of the besties.
Hmm.
Whose imaginary
Yeah.
friend is going
Well,
to win?
history is literally littered though with the corpses
Hmm.
of people who were killed because of God's will. I mean,
Yeah,
that's throughout history. So, I mean, why not continue to use God or Jesus or Allah to justify more killing and more war? Because that is what people in this world have done for centuries. I mean,
yeah,
Pete Hegseth is just continuing the tradition. So, I mean, it's not an excuse or a justification, but there is a lot of historical precedents for that.
yeah. And he's made it very known that this is his crusade. And that's what terrifies me. Having been a soldier, I have a kid that's in the service now. Where's Barron? Why isn't
Yeah.
Barron in the service? They just extended the age for enlistment to 42. They're going to just be okay with any kind of paraphernalia charge. And before, you used to have someone sign off and say, oh, yeah, it was
Yeah.
just one time. It was 2 years ago. We'll sign off. It's not likely that you have this issue. Now it's like, all right,
I'm
cool.
sure bone spurs are genetic. That's probably why he's not in there.
They're going to use some excuse. He's so tall. That's why he's got bone spurs. Freaking
Yeah, yeah.
idiots.
See? That's what it is.
And I'm sorry, there was a 7 foot tall soldier. Barron is not 7 feet tall.
No, no.
So come on, kid, let's see you in uniform. I'm sure
Yeah.
mommy can have Dolce and Gabbana make you some fancy one. Why
Yeah.
not? I won't complain about that.
Ugh. You're
All
never
right.
gonna see Trump's kids in the
No,
military. It's just never gonna happen. He's
no,
not gonna sign up his own kids for the war that Israel got him into.
no. I mean, right now we've got Eric and Don Jr., who have partnered up with and created several, drone companies, defense contracting companies. And all of these companies were initiated right before his inauguration. And guess whose companies got millions of dollars worth of government contracts? His kids.
Hmm.
So nepotism at its fucking finest here. This is all
Yeah,
about Trump
it's all
making
a
money.
con too. It's
Yeah,
all a grift. It's all a grift.
absolutely. All right.
He's the
So,
only president that's gotten this amount of money during
uh-huh.
his presidency. I don't remember the exact number, but it was something crazy
So far
that he
he's
has
at 4
earned
billion
since
for the
being in
first
office.
year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's crazy.
4
No other
billion.
president has ever earned that amount of money since coming
Mm-mm.
into office.
No,
It's
he's
insane.
right now he's tracking at 4 billion, and I checked that maybe a month ago, so who knows what it is now.
I
Especially
guarantee you,
with
it's more now.
especially with the cost of oil going up because of this war, you know. Being that we are both in law school, I wanted to hit a couple of big things that have hit for us this week. We had oral arguments with the Supreme Court for birthright citizenship.
Yes, that was a great listen. Did you listen to it?
I listened to parts of it.
Okay.
Um, being that the majority of the court right now are some version of originalists, I didn't see this passing anyways. Of course, Thomas Alito
I
and
think it's going to be 7-2. I think it's going to
yeah,
be 7-2, and I think you're going to have Thomas and Alito as the ones that are holding out for the government because of who they are.
yeah.
I just that's
It,
my prediction.
there have been like prediction sites that are putting this at 92% fail for Trump.
Yeah.
That this
Oh
will
yeah.
swing pro Constitution. And
Yeah.
there is no way that the originalists can square this. Even Gorsuch, he can't square this with anything else. You've got Roberts and Alito and Thomas, who are famously known for cherry picking their histories. When it came to Dobbs and overturning Roe, they stopped their historical review at 1850, which is fucking convenient because 1850 is when a man named Smith was supposed to marry this chick that he knocked up. She got an abortion. I think she ended up dying because of the abortion. He fled to Canada because her family was pissed. And the American Medical Association stepped in and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Women, the grandmas, old women, native women, and slaves have been doing abortions basically since the 1400s when we got in this country, at least. And this has been running unchecked. This is a medical procedure that us white men who are doctors could make money on. And they then lobbied the government to make abortion illegal. So it's convenient that our originalists who preach about looking to history of this country stop at 1850. But they fucking did. Here, I don't know. This has been 2 years of holy shit, what now? So they might go the other way. I
I
did,
don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. There was way too much uh, pushback
yeah,
from even from Barrett. I just don't see it. And I mean, I hesitate to call the case law on this point already settled because obviously nothing is. But the amendment is very clear. And so is the precedent on this issue.
hmm
So I really I don't see how it's going to go in the government's favor. Just even listening to the tone of the justices during the argument, I don't foresee it. Like I said, I do foresee those two holdouts, but I just don't foresee it swinging their way. I mean,
Right.
Even Barrett's quote, with they were discussing Sauer was discussing the Wong Kim Ark case,
Right.
and he was saying it was outdated because we live in a new world now, right? Where
Right.
8 billion people are just one plane ride away from having a US citizen baby. And Chief Justice Roberts, she hit back and she was like, it might be a new world, but it's the same constitution, you know?
Right.
And I think that that pretty much summed up where the justices are going to go with this case. I will be very shocked if it does go the other way. I mean, I really will
It
be.
I will say the argument idea that Sauer approached, this is a whole new world, there's new considerations. It was a good take.
Do you
He
think?
I think looking at this from a pure legal perspective, right? Because what argument would we have used for in favor of Roe, right? That now it's a new world. Now women have to work. More women are single mothers. You have to consider that. But that's an argument that you give to a court that doesn't adhere to originalist ideas. You give that
Mhm.
argument to a court that believes that the Constitution is a living document and is supposed to adjust and move. Sauer's argument was delivered to the wrong ears, and it was delivered poorly. Because had I
Yes.
been a justice and that was the argument, and I believe that the Constitution, which I do, is a living document, right? My argument then would have been, okay, but Thomas Jefferson, one of the key founding fathers, is known for having written letters indicating that he wanted the Constitution rewritten every generation to account for the changes and the growth of people. And that wasn't done. So I'm going to shoot your idea down because, yeah, it's a new world, but we have to follow all new world thought if that's the argument that we're going to bring to disenfranchise millions of people. So I think that it was a good attempt by Sauer. I think that he kind of pulled it out of his ass at the last minute. It definitely was not something that he prepped to really explain.
No, he didn't really think a lot of his arguments through. And
No.
when he got pushback, you could tell that he was not
Hmm.
able to really think it through on his feet either, which I think is going to be a big problem for him
Oh,
when they
yeah.
go to review it too. I mean,
Yeah.
especially the pushback regarding how are we going to enforce this,
Hmm.
when he was like, we're just going to remove the citizenship from the babies and then come back and review it later. I mean, that's not going to
Right.
fly. That's just not going to work. So
Right.
I just, he needed to have come in with a little bit more prep on how
Hmm.
they were going to push back on his argument. And I think it just really fell flat and at times felt kind of asinine.
It, I know that we've both been in class and seen it happen. It was like a bad cold call. Who,
It was.
the professor called on little Johnny to explain whatever fucking case, and little Johnny is just fumbling through because that's the case he didn't get to, you know?
Yeah.
And and I feel like that's what this was. He went into it thinking, well, they've always, been on Trump's side. They're going to be on Trump's side here. Whoever wrote that brief, my law clerk that wrote that brief, she persuaded him, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what that was. I was more shocked that Trump was actually there. I talk about
I
an
mean,
attempt to intimidate.
we have kind of a lot going on right now. It's to me it was very shocking that a president would decide to take time out of his schedule when there's literally a war going on. And I mean, there's a still an active missing persons case. I don't believe Nancy Guthrie's been found,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yes.
still
No.
ongoing. There's a lot happening in the country, and for a president to just decide, well, you know what, I'm going to go to oral arguments for what I suppose is intimidating justices in a
Right.
place where he can't have his phone or be reached is a little bit strange.
Yeah. The only reason he went there was an attempt to intimidate. You know, the right before the State of the Union address, the Supreme Court had just, slapped his hand on tariffs. And in his mumbling, slurring way, he attempted to talk shit about them, basically. And he attempted to shame them in front of the country. I don't know why. Um, they know they're smart. They know they're smarter than him. And they know that their position in the court, unfortunately, is going to extend beyond his presidency. So
Hmm.
I think that this was just another sad attempt. And it's just a bad look. Where are
Yeah.
Trump's handlers? Where are these people? Someone should have told him, you don't do that. You don't go and try to intimidate your Supreme Court.
Well, and then that speech he gave, I think it was that same night, he went and called them all stupid
Uh huh.
'cause he knew he was going to lose.
And I, I'm still just astonished that he got half the country to vote for him.
Well,
It,
I mean,
like, I
I,
have
I
been,
still have my qualms on that. I don't really know if that, I don't know. Not to be like a
I,
conspiracy theorist, but
part of me wants, the part of me that wants to hope in humanity and hope in the goodness of the citizens of this country, right? That part of me jumps on the conspiracy theories.
yeah.
This was bought, something happened. The fact that nobody's really looking into it is where the realist in me comes out and is like, no, that's about right. At least half the people in this country hate anybody with any sort of melanin in their skin enough to have voted for this man.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, and the fact that they don't really want to vote for a woman either. I mean, I could see both sides.
Yeah. So, talking about courts and Trump and just the utter what the fuckism that has been, at least my experience in law school, a federal court was hearing a civil suit against Trump for injuries that happened to that person during the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The Trump's lawyers or whoever, their defense was Trump was president at the time. According to Trump v. US, he has total immunity, basically. And this lawsuit has no standing. The lawsuit's moot. Gone. Not a problem. This judge said, oh, no, 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 no. Nobody, no White House staff prepared the press conference. No White House speechwriter wrote the speeches. There was no White House funding for him speaking. All of the funds, all of the people engaged in setting this up came from his campaign. This was not a presidential act. He has no immunity as president in this. He is open for lawsuit. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. That's not a get out of jail free card. I think that that was a great ruling. I think I think if you use the presidency, for your own personal gain, you shouldn't have immunity for it,
No,
for what your
no,
acts
there,
are.
there needs
You're
to
just another
be,
citizen at that point when especially when it was very clear that he was using that,
yeah,
as a candidate hat, basically.
there, and hopefully with the midterms, we will get more AOCs, more Jasmine Crockett's, more people that think strategically the way that they do. There needs to be a constitutional amendment that adds a bad faith actor clause to the presidency. If you are the president of the United States and there can be demonstration and evidence that you are acting in bad faith as the president, you have no immunity for any action surrounding that bad faith. That would
Now
open him so wide and anybody like him to criminal prosecution. Forget the civil shit.
Now, do you think that that needs to be a constitutional amendment, or do you think that that needs to be an amendment to the Supreme Court ruling in Trump v. United States? I think the
So
Supreme Court needs to revisit that ruling, is what I think needs to happen.
so I when the decision in Trump v. US came out, I kind of, huffed and rolled my eyes at Sotomayor's dissent. She's histrionic in a lot of her opinions. And I get it. She's looking big picture. These are some massive panic moments. But those of us on the side of, we've got education, we have understanding, we're also looking at the future steps. What exactly is this opinion telling us, right? This opinion wasn't a, court of last resort. This is it. This is what the law means. This was an appeal about presidential immunity. So it was the court saying, okay, Jack Smith, here's the playbook. These are the steps that you need to follow to show that whatever a president does was outside the bounds of presidential action, so that they are now open to attack in the courts, right? And I get where Sotomayor was so upset about this, because she knew he was going to win the presidency. Cannon was going to end the continued prosecution. She was going to stop Smith, or Trump himself, like he did, was going to stop Smith. And there was going to be no clarification on that case, right? I think that the safest measure is to get a constitutional amendment. Fuck the Supreme
Okay.
Court at this point. Until we can get, I'm not even going to say left, right, Democrat, liberal, whatever. Until we can get common sense thinking justices on the Supreme Court. Fuck the Supreme Court. Constitutional amendments need to be pushed. And that's it.
That makes sense.
And if there is a proposal after the midterms, because right now it's going to land on deaf ears, it's not even going to get out of a subcommittee. If there's a proposal for a constitutional amendment that talks about a bad faith actor in the presidency and him losing protection around those bad faith acts, everybody has to vote in favor of it. Because failure to do so means that you, as a state, when you're ratifying this amendment, that means that you're acknowledging that Trump was a bad faith actor, and you are acknowledging and condoning that future presidents can, should, and have the right to be bad faith actors in the presidency. There is no failure to pass that ratification without walking away covered in shit. I think trying to bring Trump v. US back to the Supreme Court in any fashion is asking for trouble.
Yeah, I could see that.
So we'll see what happens. In this case, we'll keep eyeballing it, because that judge's decision is going to be appealed. That appeal is going to go to the Supreme Court. So we'll see what happens. It's more likely that the Supreme Court is going to get to rule on Trump v. US again and further clarify their meaning. Who knows? She followed the steps that they were given in Trump v. US, so I don't see why they would smack her down. Our next issue is our wonderful executive order on mail-in voting.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because an executive order is not law, right? So that, I know that, but I feel like a lot of other people that I've encountered don't understand this. So I would love to clarify this for people, right? An executive order is basically it's a glorified memo, right? To staff. So if I'm the CEO of, let's say, a company, and I tell my employees how I can tell them how to file papers, right? But I can't tell the people in the building next door, how to file their papers. I can only tell my people how to file their papers, right? I can't tell them how to run their business. But the president is trying to use an executive order to tell all 50 states how to run their elections, right? And the law just doesn't give him that power. And it's a performative use, basically, of his pen to make it look like he's in charge of something the Constitution explicitly says he is not in charge of. So I think that The danger isn't that the executive order here is law, because it's not law. He can
Mm-mm.
sign all the executive orders he wants, and we can use them as toilet paper. I mean, that's
Right.
basically what it is.
Right.
But the danger here is that the administration is treating these executive orders like they are already law, and he's using them to intimidate. And in
Right.
this case, he's using it to intimidate election officials.
Right.
Like they're
And
using this threat of federal prosecution to force states into voluntary compliance. And that's just not how this works.
exactly.
It's
And
just,
just to add, so to simplify, right? We've got Congress, which is the legislative branch. They make law. The executive branch's job is to execute said law. So if Congress says we're going to allocate $10 billion to cancer research, to pediatric cancer research, right? That's all they've done. They've earmarked 10, whatever I said, million, billion dollars towards this particular research. The president can then come in and by executive order say, okay, now whoever's in charge of distributing that money, here's the guidelines for these research companies. This is what they need to show to get the grant to do said research to spend this money. So his job is to enforce law. He fucked up on this. He has no law in the realm of voting to try and enforce. That's not his job. So again, I'm not shocked. And I'm not shocked that I'm shocked. I think that I am sickened because I'm not shocked, because I should be shocked that the don't tread on me folk are celebrating this. Your whole point of existence is to get the federal government out of the state's business and let the states have their rights and do their thing. This executive order stomps all over that. It is the state's control only when it comes to elections.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, the don't tread on me people have been being tread on for quite some time now. I mean, I was in a conversation with someone on Facebook 2 days ago who is a part of the don't tread on me crowd, and they were saying how they want the government to ban uh, Muslim people from the country. And I was like, that's the exact opposite, of what of what don't tread on me means. That would require such extensive government overreach to ban a religion. So why are
Right.
you advocating for that? But they don't even understand, I don't think, what they're advocating for, which is part of the problem here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the states govern elections, not the president. It's not part of his control. So, I mean, to have an executive order that basically hands that control to the president is unconstitutional and not in his power to
Right.
do. So,
Now, Congress can add guardrails to the things that the states enact when it comes to voting. So Congress can say, you know, I don't know what a fucking guardrail would be. You make sure that they live in
I
your
mean,
state, you
if they
know?
pass the SAVE Act, for example, that would be a guardrail, but it goes
Right.
through the whole legislative process. It's not
Right.
unilaterally signed by the president.
Right. So I think that's maybe where people get confused, is that you have one branch of the federal government that can put borders around certain things that states can do. And so they think that the federal government can tell the states what to do. So they think that this executive order is somehow the same as a legislative act. The teacher in me is trying to understand their thought process so that you can dismantle that and teach what the right thing is. But there's no fucking thought process to try
Someone
and
needs to bring
understand.
back someone needs to bring back Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes. It,
Make the president watch it first, though.
yes. And make sure that the president is paying attention to the cartoon, damn it.
Yes,
It,
yes, the
it's
visuals
an,
are important.
yes, it is an entertaining little cartoon. You know,
Very helpful.
when I first started my con law class, they went and were talking about federalism, anti-federalism, and it was explained in a way that just wasn't meshing with my brain. And the first thing I fucking did was go to that School Rock cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, where's my little Bill that's walking around explaining this shit to me?
Yes.
I need this.
I have
But
con law next term. I'm excited. I feel like I'm very prepped for it because I've done so much,
yes,
studying already of constitutional law. So I'm quite
yes,
excited for that class actually.
it's fun. It is fun. So parts of this executive order, digging into it, and then comparing it to the SAVE Act and just the giant holes, right? We are putting so much on the federal government when we've cut, what is it, a third of the federal workforce that Doge cut off. The executive order calls for the use of the SAVE program, which is what DHS has. DHS has said that their database of who's a citizen, who's not a citizen, who's in this country that they know about, things like that. And it's what ICE is using partly in their deportation things. They've admitted that there's holes, but both the SAVE Act and this executive order rely on the use of that database. There
Mhm.
was a cop that was deported, I want to say from Maine or Connecticut, one of those high up there cold states. Um, and he was deported because he wasn't a U.S. citizen. I think he had a green card, but for whatever city or county he was working for, he couldn't be in law enforcement. That was their rule, unless you were a citizen, either born here, naturalized, something. Um,
Okay.
and so the people in that city were getting mad at the chief of police. Why did you hire someone that shouldn't have been a police officer? Like, our own rules say that he can't do this job. Why did you hire him? That was one part of their anger. The other part was he's otherwise a great guy and a great cop. Why did we deport him? He didn't do anything illegal. Um, but the chief of police said, I used DHS's eligibility check. They didn't
Mhm.
tell me that he wasn't ineligible. And then you've got Bondi and Gnome chirping up in the background. Well, you can't rely on us alone. You have to use your own systems. Well, bitch, you're trying to disenfranchise at least 20% of the voting population in this country because you want us to rely on your own broken program.
From what I know, the SAVE program, it's notorious for errors, right? Because when a green card holder becomes a US citizen, the DHS doesn't always update the SAVE database
Right.
instantly. So if a state runs a check during that lag, the naturalized US citizens will be flagged as non-citizens, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of there's a lot of errors there, and there's a lot of false positives and all that too. So
Yeah.
it's a very flawed system.
I mean, it's using that system from 2015 to 2020. We've had 70 US citizens deported wrongfully because
Ooh.
that system has said they're not a citizen. They're not here legally. We don't know that they exist. Kick them out. In 5 years, 70 people. And this is before, Trump sent out the Gestapo to just grab anybody that looks brown, you know? So we've got a big hole in the system. DHS has gotten a shit ton of money thanks to the one big beautiful bill, and they want more money now, and we're not fixing the broken system. Where's the
Because
don't
once
tread
again,
on me
it's
people
not
here?
about that. It's not
No,
about
but
that. It's about
yeah,
white
it's about
supremacy.
disenfranchising women and anybody that doesn't vote along MAGA lines. That's what this is about. You know, um, on our agenda, I got some stuff on the SAVE Act? I know that that's really like your area of
Well,
expertise.
yeah, and the SAVE Act, it's kind of it's at a procedural dead end, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I don't think we're not going to see the SAVE Act pass,
No,
at least not anytime soon, anyways. And even the modified version that they were trying to pass got nixed basically
hmm
in the House. So, I mean, the SAVE Act, though it is an important thing to keep our eyes on, I think right now it's sitting at a procedural dead end.
I agree. I am not opposed to more guidelines. I'm really not opposed to it, especially since research has shown that the people that are going to vote illegally and commit voter fraud are Republicans. So I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to it. If you go in and you look at the instances where there has been voter fraud, it's largely Republicans and it's largely the evangelical groups. So I'm not opposed to putting more guardrails. But if you're going to put more guardrails, we need a 15-year timeline. We
Hmm.
need government funding, both state and federal, to make this possible. You've got to do mass hirings so that people can go door to door. Hey, do you have your birth certificate so that we can register you and put this on your driver's license so that when you go vote, you can show it. And that's what we need for these guardrails. We need massive outreach. This is a huge undertaking. It's not something that you try and shove through at the federal level and then force the states to try and enact this in what are we, 6 months from midterms?
Yeah, which is, I think that's the real clue about like with what this is actually about, right? They're trying to do this right before an election, which I think is very obvious to everybody why they're trying to do it.
Hmm.
And it's the problem with the SAVE Act. I'm kind of with you there on, maybe I'm not necessarily against the idea of adding a couple more steps, but it's also just, it's unnecessary. It's trying to solve a problem that doesn't
Right.
necessarily exist right now. We If you look at the numbers, I'm very big on looking at evidence, and the evidence just isn't there that this is really a
No,
problem. That it's I mean, I believe that it's like 0.0001% is what
it's
the
some
number came
stupid
down
small
to.
number.
Yeah, it is a stupid small number. So this is not a problem. And the evidence shows that, like, the front end checks that we have in states like California, they work. They
Yeah.
work. I mean, the
Yeah.
real fraud that we should be concerned about here is these valuable databases like the
Uh-huh.
SAVE program and the purge of the voter rolls of US citizens directly before an election. That is the kind of fraud that we
Absolutely.
should be trying to pay more attention to. Voter fraud
Absolutely.
not really happening on any kind of real level to where we should be, devoting our resources to it. We have a lot of other things going on in this country.
Yeah. I think right now a lot of eyes are trained on Florida because Florida passed their version, which is basically a Xerox copy of the federal SAVE Act. It's going to fall flat. Women are going to be kicked off of voter rolls left, right, and center, especially the elderly women that are there, right? Because that's what's in Florida, old people and college kids. And the part where I have to shake my head and think this is where we failed our kids in high school, right? They don't understand civics. They don't understand their local and state governments and how that's run. Florida passed their version of the SAVE Act. They are going to find out in November just how difficult this act is and how harmful it is to women. And there is no repealing that law in Florida. They have to have a 60% majority to repeal that law. They're stuck with it. Women
Yeah.
in Florida are stuck. They are going to be disenfranchised and their voice is going to be muted until somebody can either get the numbers to pull it back or figure out a way through the courts to have it kicked out.
Oh, did they vote it in? I don't know a lot about Florida and what they did there. I haven't paid a lot of attention. Did the people vote that in, or did they just
I
enact it? Because I know
I think the
sometimes they can do that
legislature
there.
just did it. I know that
Okay.
to
Well,
change law in Florida, it takes a 60% vote.
yes, that part I do know about that state. It's just
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, it even if they weren't like this red and this horrible, it's a pretty state. There was a while that I did want to move there. Um, I heard about that 60% thing and I was like, oh, thank fucking God I didn't.
Yeah.
I would be stuck with some serious bullshit. Now, what I wish had as much fervor around it still as the SAVE Act does, as the Iran war does, is the Epstein files. You know,
Yeah, that was I mean, it had a lot of people talking about it. And now, Trump's distraction.
hmm
It works. That flood the zone tactic that Bannon came up
absolutely,
with, that playbook, it works because people are barely saying a word about it now. Um,
absolutely.
but April 14th, Pam Bondi is supposed to testify in front of the House. I know that there's a lot of chatter about her being fired and that potentially dismissing her from testifying. I don't
Nope.
foresee that happening because, I mean, her knowledge is tied to her, not her position. So I do
Exactly.
not think Congress is going to let her get away with that. I think
No.
she's going to be forced to testify. Now, do I think she's going to get in there and plead the fifth? Yeah, probably. But
Oh,
I do think
absolutely.
that, yeah, yeah. But I do think she's going to be
Absolutely.
forced to get in there. I don't think that she's going to be dismissed from that, like everyone is saying. I highly
No.
doubt that.
It I don't know why I expected this because I think I'm giving him too much credit in the expectation. If I wanted to be an evil dictator and I wanted to install my personal private DOJ to go and attack people, and then I wanted to fire my personal private DOJ because they didn't make me happy, I would have preemptively pardoned those people that I'm firing to try and keep some goodwill so that they don't go and rat me the fuck out. But he fired her without any kind of protection. If I was her, I'd be pissed.
I guarantee you he's got some deal with her that he made on the side. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I do think he is smarter than that. I mean, I don't know why he didn't pardon her, but I do think that something happens between the two of them to ensure that he didn't rat her out. She didn't rat him out. Either he's got some blackmail on her, something is going on there. Because I
Yeah.
thought about that too. I thought about that too, but there's got to be something.
It, I don't, maybe he's hoping for his charm to work her.
Maybe.
She had accepted that bribe. There was the scandal, something about the money that was paid to Trump University when she was the attorney general in Florida. She never prosecuted that. Um, he became president and then she got the attorney general spot. So there's a lot of quid pro quo going on. So maybe he just felt like we've both got enough dirt that if you rat me out, then I'm going to rat you out. And it's just going to
Mhm.
be this tit for tat. Eh, Not that I am in favor of leniency or any kind of immunity for Bondi. I would be very comfortable with Congress saying, if you tell us what all these redactions were about, if you can point us to some document that we can get unredacted that without a doubt hooks all of these men, then instead of, 25 years, we will make you do 5. Make you do
Yeah.
5, take away your bar license, you
Yeah,
know?
she has to lose her bar card. I mean, there's just no I can't
So
foresee a world where she doesn't lose it.
it, I can, the one we're in, this
Yeah,
fucking
well, that's
timeline.
true. That's
So
true.
there was a couple of groups in Florida, and this happened maybe a month and a half ago, that did put in bar complaints about her, and Florida was starting to investigate her. Her knee jerk reaction was to put open for public comment rule prop I can't say the word promulgation from the DOJ saying that any lawyer who is a part of the DOJ, if there is a state complaint and the bar wants to
Mhm.
investigate, the bar has to hand it off to the DOJ. I went ham on that public comment. Like, I don't know. I want to turn that public comment in for an assignment. My Blue Book citations were great.
The Los Angeles County Bar Association just sent out an email this week, actually, discussing that. And they basically said that they don't condone what she wrote or anything like that. It
No.
was really an interesting email, which, I mean, of course, she's just trying to get ahead of her own disbarment. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all that is. Yeah.
Yeah. She's trying to protect herself. That's all she
Oh,
cares about.
yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
she cares about. It I'm a little grateful that some from the MAGA group are now starting to realize, like, oh shit, Trump doesn't care about me. You know, the left was right. They were telling me that all along. But we're in the middle of a war that 75% of the country does not agree with. And I don't care why you don't agree with it. If you're with me and you agree it's an illegal war, we never had Congress's approval, you can take your $200 billion request and shove it in your diaper. I don't care if that's your mindset or if your mindset is this is not America first. That's absolutely not America first. As long as you're against the war, I'm cool. When it comes to the Epstein files, 82% of MAGA think that the files should be released unredacted. 82% of his base, 90% of Democrats think it should be released unredacted. I
Mhm.
would like to talk to the 10% of Democrats that think that, some of these men deserve some protection. Fuck you. Maybe they
Maybe
misunderstood the
they're
question.
I was going to say, maybe what they think is that the victim's name should remain redacted. Maybe that's what they were trying to
Maybe. I
answer.
mean, all I can do is hope at this point that that's what they were thinking, that should remain redacted, or the question was thinking that those names should be unredacted. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anybody that thinks that the victims' names should be a free for all.
Yeah.
You know, they absolutely deserve protection. But
Yeah.
Bondi got fired at least. Not that
Yeah. But
Blanche is any
now
better.
I was just going to say, so let's talk about Blanche because, I mean, he used to be one of Trump's personal defense lawyers.
Yep.
So, I mean, and he's already announced that he's not releasing any more of the files. That what we have is what we have, and that's it. So, if anyone's expecting him to be any more transparent, they're in for a rude awakening.
It it's going to be an interesting battle if there's a battle. I've said it here on the podcast before, and it's just my belief. Our Congress is neutered. They're not going to do anything about it. There is a good argument, a very strong argument to be made that with every new installment of a USAG, that the Transparency Act is renewed. So Blanche, even as interim AG, it's a renewed 30 days. He has 30 days from that brief appointment to release the Epstein files properly. If not, he's in
Thomas
contempt of
Massey.
Congress.
Thomas Massey said that you have 30
Hmm.
days. So I think that that's the argument that they are going to make.
Yeah, not that they're going to do anything about it, because what happened to Bondi? Nothing. We know that
Yeah.
there's an additional 3 million files that haven't been released. They need to be released.
Mhm.
And Blanche said, first day, we've already done what we had to do. Nothing else is coming out. Congress can go look at it unredacted. We make it available for them. Okay. And fuck Congress. I want to see it unredacted. I don't want to go through those files and see black bars when they're saying thanks for the torture video.
Yeah.
Excuse the fuck out of
Well,
me?
at this point, I think that Thomas Massey needs to make good on his promise and get on the floor and read the damn things.
Yes.
I mean, he said he was going to do that if they didn't comply. So why isn't he doing it?
Yeah. Which is why they're neutered. They're neutered. At this point, we've got people high up in American business who have resigned left, right, and center. because their name is somehow tied to the files, right? I don't see them filing defamation suits.
Yeah.
So that means you're guilty, motherfucker. If you're
Even
not
Trump, who
filing,
loves to sue,
right.
hasn't filed any suits against any of those people that he said he was going to file suits against. Trevor Noah, I think, was one of them,
Yep.
who made that comment about him being on Epstein Island a bunch of times, and he posted that ranty Truth Social post about how he was going to sue him. What happened? He never sued
Nothing.
him. Why do you think? He loves to sue. Why wouldn't he have sued Trevor Noah? Oh, probably because he can't. He can't go through the discovery process.
Right.
I mean, this is all so transparent. It's so obvious, but people just don't want to see it, or his base doesn't want to see it. That's
No.
probably the better thing to say.
His extremely loyal base does not want to see it. The
Mm-hmm.
man has admitted to sexual assault against adults.
He's
There's
been found liable for it in
yeah,
court.
it I don't understand the willing blindness. I can see it on everything else. I can see how you can be so blind because you are so proud, you Christian, who are admonished in your own Bible to not be proud, are so proud you will not admit that you were wrong about Trump.
I
But
think I was
if you have kids and you're still holding fast to this, you need to lose your kids. You're not a safe parent. You're not going to keep your child safe. That's disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that if you are protecting pedophiles and you have children, it's a little bit suspect.
Yeah. Investigations need to be opened.
Yeah. But, I think when it comes to people that supported Trump and won't let go of it, have you heard of the sunk cost fallacy?
Yep.
So I think that it has to do with that. Like, I think it makes it psychologically painful for people to admit that they were wrong. Like,
Well,
they have sunk so much investment
mhm.
into this man. Most of these people, think about it, a lot of them have like bought all this Trump merch. They've made Trump like their entire personality, and for them to admit that they were wrong, you
Yeah.
know, it's like sitting through a 2-hour movie, and then you've paid for the ticket, you've paid for your popcorn, you've done all this, and then you have to say, well, that movie sucked, like, or
It
you paid
hurts.
$500 for a dinner at a fancy restaurant, and the food was so bad, and it's that, like, that gut wrenching feeling that you
Yeah.
feel. I think it's very much the same with them at this point.
It sunk cost fallacy, for those that don't know and haven't paused us to go Google. Sunk cost fallacy is basically you've put so much into a job, a relationship, a belief, some kind of thing that you hold, that you give value, that at this point you've put so much in, you might as well see the goddamn thing out. We see a lot of it, in relationships. I've been with
Hmm.
this person for 10 years. We bought a house together. Going through a divorce or going through a breakup at this point is going to be more expensive than just sitting and taking the shit and paying for a therapist afterwards, you know? And that's what we have here. People have lost family because they have supported this disgusting example of a human being.
Family, friends, I mean,
Yeah.
relationships. Like, I don't even talk. So I had 3 of my closest friends I lost to this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
they have lost family members, friendships that they've had for a long time. I mean, they have given up huge parts of their life because
Hmm.
of their support of this person. I mean, could you imagine how hard that's got to be to admit that you were wrong, and that those people that basically removed themselves from your life were correct? And that you
Yeah.
have to admit that you lost those friendships and those relationships for nothing. How hard that has to be. I
For
actually
a
do have
man
a
that
little bit
doesn't
of
care about you.
sympathy. And that you were fooled, like you were bamboozled. I mean, think about it. No new wars, lower groceries. I mean, all that stuff. And look at where we're at now. I mean, there is no reconciling that. I mean, so
No,
they do literally have to they have to brainwash themselves in order to reconcile this kind of, 180 that he's done. There's no other way out.
it. I think we saw a big shift when Joe Rogan shifted and was like, "Whoa, I fucked up. My bad. I fucked up. He's an idiot. His cabinets are idiots. This is stupid. I shouldn't have done this." And I think that's where some people, were kind of signaled that, okay, it is okay to say I was wrong. If Joe Rogan can do it, I can do it. It's sad. And it is sad, like it hurts my heart, but it's also pathetic sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I said it to someone this morning because people were up in arms about that Easter message, right? And
Oy
and
vey.
I literally said to that person, I was like, "You know what? I'm not even going to say it, but I told you so." Like
Yeah.
I saw all of this coming. I saw it all coming. I told you guys this in 2024. I told you guys this in 2016, and anybody with a functioning brain cell could have seen all of this coming. So
Yeah.
like why is everyone shocked? I have a hard time understanding the level of shock that I'm seeing. Like how were you fooled by it,
It I I don't understand. And for those, because we are doing this recording maybe less than 12 hours after this message came out, to read Trump's Easter message, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. I, it,
Wild. It's wild stuff.
he's
And on
admitting
Easter.
he's admitting that he is planning to commit war crimes on
Exactly. Like
Easter.
you can't do that. Like you
It
can't just blow up a country's infrastructure. I mean, and he's writing this down on social media.
yeah. It
I mean,
I
this is just
I'm not going to clutch my pearls and, oh, the president is cussing. I don't give a shit.
no, I don't care
I
about
don't give
that.
a shit. I don't care about that. I care that the president is admitting to premeditated war crimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, I don't know. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. Hopefully he chickens out of that one too. And just to kind of wrap this up, I think that you align with me. At least 3 years ago, I would have said I would never be a prosecutor. Ever, 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 ever. I will never be a prosecutor. At this point, I am edging closer to that line of, hey, look, after the next presidential election, when there are more federal jobs opening up, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring to be a federal prosecutor. I only want to prosecute this administration.
Yeah.
That's all
I
I want to
mean,
do. I'll fucking
if
volunteer.
yeah, I mean, if that's what I could do, then yeah, I would do that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm still leaning towards defense. But I would not defend. I
I
don't
will
want to
not
do.
prosecute. I will not prosecute anybody unrelated to this administration.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't care if you're the chief of staff's assistant to go get coffee. I'll go after you.
Oh yeah,
You
no, I
were
agree.
complicit in this.
If I could prosecute anyone in this administration, I would do it for free.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get paid. I would do it for the love of the game.
So anybody out there who is high up in the DOJ waiting this out so that you can start to bring actions here, you have 2 people who are willing to volunteer their time. I will research. I will bring you coffee. I just want to
Yes.
be able to tell my grandchildren that I was involved in this
Yeah.
beyond
If you
more
guys
than
need an
just a podcast.
intern, I put my hat in the ring as an intern for this.
All right, guys. Any outgoing messages for our listeners?
Oh gosh, stay the course. I always tell people like this. We see a lot of historical parallels. There's a lot of fear, and these kind of regimes thrive on fear, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
as hard as it is, we have to stay. I hate to use this cliche term of stay positive, but that's kind of the best thing to do is to not back down and to not let the fear take over and, lie down and take it. We can't do that. We have
Right.
to, the more voices that rise in dissent, the better off we're going to be.
You couldn't have said it better myself. You know, it, I don't think that we are telling you to go with the flow and be hopeful that things will change. Plant your feet, be fucking stubborn. If you can't get out and protest, I get it. Some people can't. You know, any type of resistance is in itself a protest. So if all
Mhm.
you can bring yourself to do is put, you know, I want the old America back, I want democracy to be secure on your social media, that is protest. And that's letting
And
the people that are out there actually fighting know that Americans are behind them, do support this.
And on that same line, too, even if you can't get out and protest, a great thing to do right now is to donate to the ACLU and to donate to your local immigrant rights organizations. In Los Angeles, we have the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, cheerla.org. It's a great organization. They do amazing work, and every single state has a local ACLU branch. So whether it's donating time to them, whether it's donating money, these organizations are doing amazing work to help
Hmm.
things keep moving forward.
And if you've got no money, there's homeless shelters out there. People are losing their homes left, right, and center. Donate a blanket, donate some old clothes. If you do something for the betterment of mankind, that in itself, right now, is a protest and is a stance for America the way that it really should be, not the way that it is right now. What is your social media, Leila, so that our people can find you?
I am underscore Leela Alice underscore on Instagram. You can find me there.
Awesome. I will make sure to put that in the comments. That way you guys can follow our lovely Leela. It was good being with you guys this week. Thank you. Chris and I will be with you on Wednesday.
Thank you
Goodbye.
for having me.
If you want a second opinion or just something to rage about, hit that button and subscribe. This has been Political Malpractice.